Welcome, everybody. Who's here?
Hello.
Hello.
Nice to see you all on this Monday morning. Perhaps everyone, we just wait another minute. There were a fair amount of people signed up to no problem, Nesreen, if you can't be on video. Obviously we love to see everyone's faces, but just your presence is wonderful. If you want to just share where you're calling in from and maybe just a word about how you're feeling and kind of what brought you here today.
And while we're waiting, if you don't know us, I'm Andy Engel. This is my colleague, Dara Cosberg. We're the programming team at Reimagine. Welcome, Connie. Welcome, Jill. Sherry. Gail. Where are you calling in from, Dara?
I'm calling in from San Francisco as well.
Oh,
Oh yeah, and hi, Fel. I haven't seen you in a while. Hi. Great. Got Jim.
all right. While we have this prelude here, and I want to read this to you. Actually, Dara, can you read this to us? And then,
Sure.
then I will read the next slide.
Okay. This fall, we are inviting you, our Reimagine community, to co-create grief, growth, and action. These offerings are for all those who want to face the hardest parts of life and wish to channel our adversities, losses, and mortality into meaningful action and growth. Together, we can lean into trauma-related growth, the scientific phenomenon that some people actually come to flourish through a traumatic experience. That happens naturally in approximately 10% of people, but we believe it can be for all of us.
Dara, can you continue? Sorry.
Okay. Well, do you want to preface this?
Why don't you hand it off to someone in our group?
Okay. Oh no, I mean, I'm happy to read, but I just, I'll just for a little background,
Yes.
is that in our prior festivals, we had written an intention for people who were hosting events to read out together with their attendees at the beginning of the event to just kind of set the space and intention. And so this is the first draft of one for this festival. And we wanted to share it with you to also as our collaborators to see if you had any feedback and just kind of see what your response was. But I am happy to read it, or if somebody would like to, I'm going to make it so that you can come off mute and you are welcome to read it if you'd like to.
I see Connie's hand.
Oh, great. Connie, go ahead.
I'll read the first paragraph and then someone can pick up.
Okay.
There is no life without death, no love without loss. No growth without action. Let's move forward together, not in leaps and bounds, but in small, sweet steps.
In the face of distance, illness, racism, and isolation, we are reimagining a changed world, kinder, slower, smaller. We are reimagining the giving and receiving of love, the cycles of loss and new beginnings, and what it means to be fully alive.
This is how we move. This is how we transform. This is how we grow. This is how we take action. Thank you. So today's goals. Thanks again for joining us. Thanks to those of you who just arrived. Again, my name is Andy. This is Dara. We are going to guide you in designing your Reimagine event as an experience that fully integrates action. Also today, this is going to be hopefully in 1 hour, We're going to get to know one another as Reimagine collaborators and colleagues. So Reimagine's mission still pretty much stays the same, but we've refined it a bit. We continue to spark community-wide explorations of death and celebrations of life through creativity and conversation. We continue to draw on the arts, design, medicine, spirituality, to transform cultural attitudes around death and grief, and to address the inequities surrounding how we live and die. And along with initiating dialogue on end-of-life topics, Reimagine is emphasizing the possibility of transforming taboo, isolation, fear, confusion, loss, and other adversities into elements of growth and action. This fall, we're putting trauma-related growth at the forefront. We're asking you, all of our collaborators, to collaborate in helping individuals and communities find opportunities for growth. Since the 90s, psychologists have developed theories on post-traumatic growth. I'm curious if anyone is familiar at all with post-traumatic growth. If you can, just raise your hand. One scholar, Richard Tedeschi, breaks it down into steps. The first one, the importance of educating yourself. 2, telling others what's going on with you. 3, being of service to others. 4, and I should add here that there's no expectation here of returning to any kind of normalcy when you experience trauma, grief, or loss, or eliminating those feelings. It's about experiencing growth by traditional learning, which is like reading articles and books, listening to lectures, or through creative, meditative experiences. And what happens when we experience growth or transformation? A set of outcomes can occur that can make us feel that our lives are fuller than we actually expected. Living fully is also about taking small, sweet steps towards equity and justice. It's about showing up as an ally to those on the margins of society. JEDI, which stands for Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, is a value that we've integrated into all that we do at Reimagine. We'll be asking all of you, our collaborators, to recommit to JEDI principles this fall. And you can learn more at letsreimagine.org/JEDI. And we'll be sharing all these links to you in the follow-up email as well. So now I'm going to hand this back over to Dara to talk to you about backwards design principles.
Great. Thank you, Andy. Just for a little background, my master's degree focused a lot on curriculum development. And I just wanted to share one of the kind of design frameworks that I think might help inform how you go about creating your event. So Andy, if you can flip I just want to share this. And for, educators, this concept of sort of starting with objectives first is definitely a leading thing. But I feel like, so Grant Wiggins and Jay McTeague, who wrote this book called Understanding by Design, I think really crystallized the importance of this. And so just to I'll just read this statement out loud for you all to digest it, but it starts with, to begin with the end in mind means to start with a clear understanding of your destination. It means to know where you're going so that you better understand where you are now, so that the steps you take are always in the right direction. And, this concept was really first applied in education in terms of designing curriculum. And, teachers are no different than any of us. We're all busy, living our lives, and, we're kind of in a do type of culture. And when thinking about a lesson, it often feels obvious just to start with, what do I want to teach? And then you figure out how to measure it. But they found that a much more effective approach is starting the other way with the end in mind and identifying the desired results. What do you want your students to know? How do I assess it? And then how do I create your lessons? Oh, yes, actually, if you wouldn't mind flipping, sorry, I'm on two screens. So Andy, did you go to the next slide?
I did.
Okay, awesome. Sorry, I lost the Zoom page. Oops, sorry, really not killing it this morning. Let's see. Okay.
I hope you'll all be as patient as yourselves with your technology when you host your own events.
Yeah, sorry. And I'm Monday mornings. It's a little rough for me. So basically what we want you to think about is if a main objective of your event is for your attendees to take one small, sweet step afterwards, how can you ladder people up to that throughout your lesson? So that's kind of where you start. And I'm sure that you have many other objectives as well. But what we want to do to create this thread throughout all of the Reimagine events that are happening in the fall is that if this is, a shared objective, that can be incredibly powerful. Both, within your specific event, but as we kind of collect these small, sweet steps and share them out with the community, we really believe that we can create sort of a cycle, like a growing sort of spiraling out of inspiration that then feeds the community to take more steps and create kind of movement altogether. And so what we want to do now is sort of this is just kind of where we're coming from and just giving you a little bit of a framework of how we're thinking about it. We now want to make it a little bit more tangible by sharing some just principles that I think would be helpful to think about as you're designing your events. And then Andy and potentially Jessica, one of our collaborators, is going to share some examples of how you could do this within an event. So just to kind of start, one, big thing, obviously, to get people more engaged in your event is just to weave in more participatory elements, which could be self-reflection exercises, breakout groups, larger group discussions, so that people are already in a kind of action mode where they're not just kind of sitting back passively, but they're actually kind of thinking very directly in terms of what they're learning and how that applies to their own lives. Also sharing personal experiences of action-oriented transformation, or sharing the stories of others who are both very inspiring, but also kind of crystallize what you're talking about, so that, again, it becomes more tangible and accessible to people. Providing participants with an opportunity for self-reflection, and then obviously encouraging participants to take small, sweet steps. And the reason why we say small, sweet steps, which we co-opted from our partners at Holistic Underground, is that, so often people don't take action, especially when it deals with hard topics, just because it becomes really overwhelming. And both in terms of the difficulty of the topic, but also just in terms of when they think about like where they want to go, it's like, it becomes paralyzing because it's like, how am I going to get there? And so by you kind of modeling and kind of breaking down how these small steps can lead to large transformation and movement, I think it will dispel a lot of that paralysis. And, if your event is already designed as a workshop, you're probably more than halfway there. But if your event is a talk, an interview, a panel discussion, there are definitely ways to making your event more interactive. So if, you're asking participants to take action, we as collaborators in the programming team should model action in the experiences that we design. And just to kind of share a few suggestions, just to get your minds percolating before Andy and possibly Jessica share some examples. In your reminder email to registrants, ask them to bring a journal and a writing instrument. If an interviewer asks their guest a question and receives a response, take a few-minute pause and ask your audience to write their response to the same question. And then maybe ask them to share their responses in the chat. Set aside sufficient time for Q&A and invite audience members, to ask questions throughout the event, in the chat, and then maybe give some time for people to ask them verbally. One question that we are going to share in a survey, which we'll give all of you to share out at the end of your event, is, in relation to what I've experienced at this event, what small action can I take on my own behalf or the benefit of my larger community? And so that, can be something you don't need to wait till the end to mention. And even naming that at the beginning of your event, that at the end of this event, we're going to ask you to share one small action that you can take on behalf of yourself or the benefit of your larger community. And even just kind of by seeding that idea in people's brains, I do think that will lead them to kind of be more active as they're learning throughout your event. And then obviously, it's like you might be providing what resources might support them in taking that action and sharing those with them. These are just a couple ideas, but we had Andy go through an event that he helped organize and think about how he would, could make it more participatory and action-oriented. So Andy, take it away.
So if I could turn back time in the words of the wonderful Cher, and I could do this event again. This was a table talk, which is our series Buy-in for Underrepresented Communities. It was called Make This House a Home, LGBTQ plus folks aging together. And it was a showcase of different elder housing initiatives for LGBTQ plus people across the country. We had 3 speakers, 1 moderator. And again, if I could go back in that time machine, I'd probably add this participatory element. After the introduction and welcome, I would ask attendees to take 5 minutes and write down their definition of home, and then share that out in the chat. And I remember that in the Q&A portion of this table talk, there were several LGBTQ plus folks on the call who were solo aging, single, living alone, and they described the anxiety of their future, aging alone, and the feelings of isolation. And one of the attendees at this table talk offered to lead a support group for others facing those same fears. So this is a good example of that moment of transformation of growth. And for the small, sweet step, I would probably invite the attendees to attend an upcoming talk by one of our table talk speakers at her next Instagram Live conversation. So that's my example. Jessica, this is Jessica Murby, one of our fabulous collaborators. Jessica, would you be able to share your example?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it wasn't letting me unmute. You can hear me now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I reached out to Andy and Dara right away when I heard the theme of this festival, because it just aligns exactly with the type of work that I like to offer with integrating action. And I know many of your faces already, and I'm sure that's true for many of you as well. And it's something that I've always tried to weave in both into a book that I wrote and into my events. And I've always been tweaking it along the way. I love that Andy brought up that what he will do next time or would like to do next time. And my friend Christabeth Atwood is here, who I've partnered with before. And so I was going to share a different example, but I would like to share one about a workshop that we've offered many times called Seeing the End, because Dara brought up this idea of beginning with the end in mind for a workshop. And Christabeth and I have partnered on this workshop of seeing the end of our lives before we necessarily need to. And I think one thing that has really helped integrate action is Christabeth and I sharing our own stories concisely of how we separately came to realize the benefits of seeing the end of everything in our own lives through very different means, and then realizing this one day. So we shared very vulnerable stories with everybody, and then we opened up the space for others to share as well. And I think that's helped to hear a little bit from each participant. And so it helps us identify the actions that people might want to take and how it applies to their lives. And so one thing that we invited people at the end, it's like, can you see the end of everybody and everything you do as you go out into the world this week? And what I wish we could have done, which we always wanted to do, is if we have like a following workshop, maybe the next week on a different topic, to hear how that went. So I don't know how the actions that we've invited others to take have impacted their lives necessarily. But now, I'm really curious about that too. So I am going to be doing a series. So I do want to follow up with that at the beginning, keep it small and follow up at the beginning to find out how those actions went. And another thing that I think is really helpful in terms of taking action is not just waiting till after the event or inviting participants afterwards, but doing it within the event. Creating some form of accountability during the event instead of solely afterwards. Because I've just found that with all of this work, there's so much resistance to exploring it already. So it's just helpful if we do it together. But I'll stop there.
So apropos of that, Jessica, thank you so much. Let's take some time now. We're going to take 5 minutes. Get your paper and pencil. And we would love for you to take this time now to try to brainstorm a bit, if you haven't already, and jot down some notes. So here are the questions. As an event host, how can I encourage my participants to learn more information about this topic and seek out additional resources? How can I encourage further self-reflection on this topic among my participants? Are there creative or meditative activities that can help? Related to this experience, what concrete action can I encourage my participants to take on their own behalf or for the benefit of a larger community? So I'm going to set the timer now. Relax, write, and just be a few notes. That's fine. Okay?
So I hope your conversations were fruitful, and we would love to hear from you both verbally and also in the chat, if you prefer, to share maybe, kind of what were some of the things that you brainstormed, and maybe give a little context about what event is getting organized. Jill, would you like to speak? Yeah, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yes, I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. I just want to share really briefly that I was super nervous and anxious, and that alchemized almost immediately through conversation and that dyad, because as Dara and I have my event in 2 days, well, less than 2 days, like a day and a half. And I'm like, oh my God, how do I just reorganize this whole thing? So anyway, but while they were putting out those questions, I had written something on an index card, and I had said to my beautiful partner, who's an artist and end-of-life doula, what about this? I have this question that I'm going to be asking my interviewee. I had written down 3 action steps and a question as a takeaway, and I said, do you think this would work? And she said, yes, that's just like so powerful. And that,
And what, Jill, what's the question?
so I'm asking my interviewee about a question that was from a book that I had read. And this is the question. Well, it's a story that I had read. A rabbi tells, I made a vow that I would never say anything that couldn't stand as the last thing I ever say. And I thought, what about if I ask the participants, like, what would be your vow? Or could you take that vow home as takeaway into your life, maybe this week or within the next as you consider maybe registering for the next program, like as what would be your promise to yourself? Would it be this one? How does that land for you? Anyway, I don't want to take up too much time, but that was the powerful question that landed there. So I want to just share that because along with the other 3 steps that I figured out as well. So thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Jill.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I believe Andrea wanted to share. Let me see if Andrea, can you unmute yourself now? I'm doing the ask to unmute. Oh, there we go.
Oh, sorry. I didn't want to share. I just jumped on late. I just wanted to say hi. I'm jumping on.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay. Great. Sorry, I didn't know when you had said that. Sorry. Nice. Welcome to the event. Great. Does anybody else have something they'd like to share? You can just like raise your hand, and if you can't unmute yourself, I can click that little button.
Gail.
Sorry. I said Phil, and you said
I saw Andy saw Gail and Dara saw me.
Me. Okay, so
I'll go real quick since I'm
okay.
unmuted.
Okay.
For this exercise reminds me when we design things that while people came to whatever workshop or event we're putting on because of the title or whatever attracted to them about the promotional part of it, that in all actuality, they're really there to understand their perspective and their own internal reactions to whatever attracted them. So as facilitators, we always prioritize the participants' space and time to be able to discern their motivations, which may lead them closer to the topic, or they might go, wow, thanks for the clarification. I don't want anything to do with this. Mm-hmm. But it's really important that we give that space for them to hear themselves, because the actions they're going to take are going to emanate from within them. So there you go. Off to Gail.
Okay. So I think that's a fantastic point. And I think that just to underscore one of the takeaways I hear from you, Fel, is that it's we want to help inspire people to take action, but we don't want them to feel like it's prescriptive or mandatory, or, and it's also just because everybody who comes into your event is going to be at a different starting point and also want to get to a different end point. It's like where they want to go. But I do think that, obviously, like giving, some people do find ideas helpful to kind of spring their own, but I think kind of going back to what is your purpose, where do you want to go, and making sure that everything is grounded in that is very important. And Gail, take it away.
Thank you. So I am planning the Before I Die New Mexico Festival, which I've done for 5 years. And I see Marty McNabb and actually Garrett Caldwell have participated in my festivals in past years. And Marty's going to be involved this year. It's 4 days of events that are online, as well as we'll be doing 2 days in person in Albuquerque of a whole range of activities and speakers and death cafes and opportunities to people to just take death out of the closet, talk about it, look at it, and learn what they need to know before somebody gets sick or dies. So it's all about learning and taking action, and everything from downsizing and estate planning and advanced care planning. And we now have medical aid in dying available in New Mexico, but a lot of people don't know how to access that if they needed to. So we've got a panel about that, and talking about grief and estate planning, the whole 9 yards. And we are going to end with an in-person event that won't be streamed, but I think we'll video record it and then make it available later, where it's called Cemetery Stories. We're going to be in historic Fairview Cemetery, founded in 1881, and have people tell stories of life, death, and the afterlife, the great beyond. And then since that is November 2nd, we'll encourage people to write messages to their loved ones and then have a fire pit where they can burn those to send the messages off into the ether. So I haven't listed it yet on the Reimagine platform, but I'm going to do that soon.
Awesome. Well, that sounds like a spectacular event, and I want to go. And
you can join virtually.
Gail, as part of the worksheet exercise, were you trying to come up with ideas for the festival in its entirety, or for one particular event in the festival that you're organizing?
Well, I've already got it pretty well sketched out. So I guess just the one, no, just overall, the whole event. The whole event is designed to get people to take action, but they can't take action unless they know what they need to take action on. So that's a lot of how this whole festival is designed, to let you know what you need to know before you go.
yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Gail, please list it on the platform. We're happy to promote.
So it's a 4-day event. Would I list for each day?
Yes, but you can duplicate your event so that you don't need to, you have to, the way the platform works is once you add one event, then you can duplicate it for the other days and just change the date and the title if you need to.
Since I have different events on different days, would I change the description?
Yes, it depends on how people register. If it's like they register once and then they get,
the whole thing,
kind of thing, or but I would say, if there's like separate individual events that people can attend in and of themselves, obviously if you actually post each of those events, then there's more presence of what you're doing on the platform. So, it's up to you in terms of how you want to frame it.
Okay.
Great.
Well, I've got Marty. You should unmute Marty.
Yeah. Yes.
Because she's one of our people, and she's going to be talking about, our things and downsizing our things.
Great.
You're unmuted, Marty.
I am.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Martin.
Thanks, Gail. No, I'm so excited. This is my second year with Gail, and I'm actually going to be in person in Albuquerque for this event. So I'm super excited about that. And we'll talk about that more too, and hopefully make us co-presenters for our event. So I ended up meeting with Nesreen, I think that's how you pronounce, in the breakout room. And, needless to say, all right, I got that right. My events are highly interactive. I mean, there's other than intro and inviting the next person to share and the next person to share, and then the closing. It's all highly interactive. But this was really helpful, even in our discussion, where I ended up writing down, when you gave us that time, Andy, to write down, and I said, in the asking about what, those small steps, the thinking steps, I ended up saying, I would ask the question, what do you feel or think if I asked you to give away the one object that brings you joy, magic, and meaning? What would that feel like? Or if you lost it, somebody took it. So that the feeling part of it, and then what do you want to happen to it when you die? So
those are great prompts, Marty. Fantastic.
Thank you. But Nasreen ended up saying, internal steps, small steps, but she reminded me about how do you bring this out into more the community, and the community, like, asking your family or asking the people on your team in business, asking those kinds of questions. Or even, needless to say, one of my small sweet steps is to invite people to join Rachel the next day, who I met at Gail's event last year, to talk about, like, how stuck so many of us are when somebody dies and we have all their stuff. So, would you consider getting a buddy? Would you consider having a friend? Would you consider having somebody join you on Zoom or in person to open that box or go into that attic? And so it was sort of like, oh, I was just asking about the individual, and there needs to be a lot of internal questioning, but then I loved where Nasreen brought me to think about it in a broader way. So.
Marty, you're reminding me of another Reimagine Collaborators film. It's called Love and Stuff. And it's
Love and Stuff?
Love and Stuff. The director's name is Judith Helfand, and she's been doing workshops with people to encourage you to go to your loved one and do that inventory of stuff, to know what's important about it, to hear those stories, so you're not stuck with the stuff.
Right. You have the stories.
With it. Yeah.
You have the stories, and then you can let go of the stuff, or you can let go of more of the stuff. So that's awesome. I need to, what's her name again?
Judith Helfand. She has one of those New York Times short films called OpDocs. You can find it there. And she's got a new documentary out based on that short film, Love and Stuff.
Love and Stuff.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you.
Jessica, would you be willing to share the idea that you wrote us yesterday about, because it just also made me think about the community stuff. Are you able to unmute? I don't understand the setting.
Oh, now it is.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I know that's a long story. So what part of it is it, kind of that end piece?
Yeah, I think kind of, because the other, and just for a little bit more context, is that, when we think about action steps too, they can be things that pertain to the individual, but also, and we hope that, this gets integrated, is like, how can you take an action step on behalf of the community that would benefit the community, both you and so I just thinking about what you shared. So whatever piece you think is helpful.
Yeah. So some of you here might have met my friend Ethan, who died of glioblastoma back in April. He was 36 years old, which is my age. And there was a lot of help that he needed. And I knew that I had, time to offer, wasn't working at the time. And it just aligned with exactly what I wanted to do. And it felt a little bit overwhelming though. It's like he needed help financially, physically, navigating the healthcare system, he's similar to me in that he's like somebody who really is more on his own, travels, lives different places. We actually met on Maui a long time ago. He was like the epitome of health. And he, but with that, struggled with not having like those resources that you might have if you were in like a long-term partnership and had a steady home and all of that. And I thought there's so many other people out here. It's like not everybody dies with a partner when they're in their 90s. Like some people do everything right and they die when they're 36 years old of something completely unexpected. And there's so many of us that want to help. And I gave like a small financial donation, and then he asked me, instead of, I was maybe going to like help him with his website, which I just really didn't want to do at all. But, and it isn't like part of my competency either, but he asked me to interview him. And I just thought like, oh my gosh, I would love to come up with questions to ask you. I know how to use Zoom now because of Reimagine and record it and put it out there. And so I did that. And then he ended up, having other opportunities with interviews with bigger and bigger names. It just kind of like went from there. And I can't say that's because of that one action, but I think us coming together kind of got the ball rolling. And then the other thing was I created a Facebook group based on that happening, where I said, like, we all want updates on Ethan and we all want to know small ways we can help. So Ethan or I can tell, what are small ways that Ethan needs help right now that might align with what you're really good at. And it was like, it was really slow to kind of take off. And then Ethan started creating TikTok videos, and it just started growing really rapidly as he got closer to the end of his life. And so I've really been thinking it would be so great to have more platforms like this. And maybe even through Reimagine, I put it out there to Dara and Andy, maybe there could be somewhere we could go where we could both ask for support in small ways. Like I need somebody to listen to me for 30 minutes. And that's it. I don't want any advice. I just want a listener, and I want it to be a stranger. Or, I'm sure you all have, great ideas, but it's like, if there could be a platform that goes beyond just like the purely financial means that just feel too overwhelming to help.
That sounds amazing.
Thanks, Marty.
Yeah, no, and I think, and I'm even just thinking about question prompts related to your events that would encourage people to think beyond themselves, because I think, for some people kind of taking it actually might be harder for them to do something for themselves in a way as like a first step, if it's a topic that is uncomfortable for them for various reasons. But even like identifying someone in their life who maybe is going through that or something similar, and thinking about what is a step that they could do to support them, or, so like, because I think of Reimagine in a lot of ways as kind of creating the slant in or a gateway into things that people, just difficult things. And again, some people are already there and really excited. And then there's a lot of people that are, they're dipping their toes in. And so, I think often it actually is easier for a lot of people to do a step to support somebody else rather than, that might actually, and then in terms of accountability too, the fact that they said that they were going to do this to help somebody, they might be more motivated. So I don't know. Those are just some other things that came up to me based on your story, Jessica.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I know that because my book is all like action based in the workshops that I've created out of it. And it's, for ourselves, but like doing an advanced directive for yourself is ultimately for others, and it helps others, or doing all of this planning and all of this thinking. But I also know the resistance that creates because it's within ourselves. So I think we can both like use the community to uphold those actions. And I like what Dara, I really like what you said at the beginning, which I don't often do in the workshop. It's like, let's remind our participants and ourselves how this could benefit ourselves and others. Like how the action, like why does it matter? Like tying it to something that matters.
I did actually want, Sherry, who had to drop off early, had messaged me with a question that she wanted, asked me to answer with the group. And it was, do you recommend that if we do breakout rooms for our participants to connect, should we encourage them to exchange emails and to be accountability partners for the small, sweet action step? or is that too much social pressure? I think, and when we used to do the dose of togetherness sessions, and a lot of people did connect with each other in the breakout rooms, and what we often said was like, even put a message out that was like in the last couple minutes is like, if you, no pressure, if you want to exchange email addresses, this would be a good time. And I think sort of, I actually think, and Andy, just another thing that we might want to consider, providing as a template for collaborators, and even to participants around accountability in general, and what are helpful accountability measures. And I do think that, when people do click, obviously we don't want to make people feel like in a weird spot if somebody's like, oh, I want to share my email and you don't want to. But I also feel like that could be a great thing to encourage. And, one thing that we can think about is maybe where, and we're working on building kind of a platform where people would be able to sort of connect with each other within that platform. So it's not as like personal in a way of giving out your email address. So sorry, I don't think I have a complete answer, but it's making me think about how, along with this, kind of how much accountability needs to be discussed or mentioned, and even for you all to share sort of what are accountability measures that you take that are helpful, whether it's like somebody within this call or like a friend, because I mean, again, like with all of you on the call right now, I could see how, if you guys wanted to, you could exchange contact info, or, we have the Facebook group, and, sort of continue this conversation there, and making sure that you're kind of, diving deeper into this after this call even.
We would be remiss not to also give a shout out to Jessica, who had hosted our first accountability group for collaborators to encourage all of you to get your programs on the platform. This was back in the spring, I believe. So thanks for that, Jessica.
Oh, thank
we
you.
already planted accountability in our brain back then.
Thanks. Yeah, that was fun. It was nice to connect with everybody in that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
We only have a few minutes left, and I want to make sure if anybody wanted to share anything, and also if and you can do this verbally or put it in the chat. And if, thinking about what kind of supports you all need and how Andy and I can support you, if there's any kind of, I don't know, things, resources, if there's anything that kind of comes up for you either now or later that would be helpful, please let us know, because whether we can provide it or we can find somebody else who can help with that support, we'd be happy to. And Marty, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I love how, like, it just makes sense that the platform, Let's Reimagine platform is kind of spinning off other ideas. And, it sounds like what Jessica's talking about is sort of like this other platform that's sort of along the lines of crowdfunding, not necessarily, I mean, and I think that's your resources list too on Let's Reimagine, which I have, friends, they're like, we're not putting together, my friend who does A Lovely Death, she's like, I'm not putting together a resource list. I'm just putting the one that Let's Reimagine put up. So I get that, but it seems like there's this other thing, like, how can we connect these two people who are doing, and it just reminds me, I was listening to A Lovely Death, my friend's podcast with Gail Rubin. And she was talking about, all the people. So you were talking, Jessica, about the people, living, the people who are living, whether they have short term or long term, like we're not getting out of this alive. But it sounds like you're providing resources or assistance to people who are living. And but Gail brought up about a foundation she wants to make happen, which is sort of like, and I misunderstood it, but I was just thinking it was like buy one prepare and buy one funeral, and you get the second one for half price or for free. And we talked about how many cremains have been left unattended, unrecognized, unhonored. I was thinking, oh, so you purchase one for yourself. Like you were saying before, sometimes it's hard to do something for yourself if you're like, oh, but then I'm doing this for somebody else. That might be a fun thing. And I was just like, oh my God, this sounds, there's just so many ways this can go. And I'm thankful for you pulling everything together and making us connect with one another so we can think in different ways.
Thanks, Marty. And I think on that point, Blair and Fell wrote, how about a creators roundtable to have deeper discussions about our projects with constructive feedback? And we do have a kind of networking event where people do, that's coming up, where to kind of help collaborators learn about each other's projects and connect with each other. I do, though, love this idea of having more of, kind of specifically around people kind of presenting on what they're doing and getting constructive feedback. So I will definitely think about this, and Andy and I can, whether or not we take that other event and kind of maybe take part of it to do that too. We may be able to do that. I don't know, Andy, do you have any thoughts?
No, I'm glad you made the connection between Fell's suggestion to meet, greet, and dream. Maybe there's a way to integrate that somehow in there.
There. Okay.
So I posted the link if you guys want to register for that speed dreaming event in the chat.
Yeah. Great.
And we'll be sending out a follow-up with more links to you folks. So thank you, all of you, for showing up this afternoon. We really appreciate it. And we really you're what makes Reimagine possible. It's all your events. It's this community. So we look forward to seeing you again soon. Okay.
And is there any, I'm willing to stay on for a few minutes if anybody has any last questions or thoughts. Great. No, thanks, Tim. Oh, okay. Great. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody who wants to go.
Okay. We can, no.
Jenny, did you have a question? You did, okay.
It's so funny. I don't know what my weird setting is.
Yeah, we're not allowed to unmute.
It's,
And that's okay.
I promise. Well, actually, Andy, when you click on the more, like if you click on participants and then there's like the little drop down arrow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I did it the opposite way. Oh my God. The whole time I thought I did the opposite. That was okay. Thank you for bringing that up again. I was just like, I don't know. I don't understand. Why can't people unmute themselves? I have the right setting. And I literally changed it to the opposite of what I wanted. So my apologies, everyone. Go ahead, Jenny.
No worries. I was just thinking as you were talking about the meet and greet, what if we had like separate breakout groups for collaborators who are just starting out, where they're sharing ideas and brainstorming, and then we have a group of more seasoned collaborators where they can share feedback on their events.
That's a great idea.
I think that's wonderful. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Go, Jessica. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I love these events and I always get so excited for them. But I think what's been echoed a lot is that there's too many opportunities to connect with too many great people and offer things together is just not practical. So I thought for that space of us getting together, it would be really nice to have a different prompt and option in a breakout room besides collaborating.
Yeah. I think Yeah, that totally makes sense. I mean, we have so much flexibility with it. And I also think, just thinking about Phil's idea of like a round table, that, where maybe people like, we'd have to test it out, but maybe even like people like can request like we can do like 3 people at the end or something, or even at the beginning, that are kind of modeled for the other, around how, like where somebody presents what they're doing, what are some of the challenges they're trying to figure out. And then as like a group, everybody kind of inputs, but does it sort of publicly. And then maybe then people go into their own little breakout groups, because I think that sometimes it's like, it is helpful to kind of model like what might be helpful, and what kind of information might be helpful to provide to people to get the kind of feedback you want. Yeah.
Kind of what Jessica and I did in our breakout group today. I asked Jessica, how can I implement these things more in my events? And she gave me some really good ideas.
Yeah. Awesome. Great. And Nesreen, I just wanted to say that I really appreciate all of your like positive comments in the chat. It really makes me feel good. So not just, awesome. And then Jill, did you raise your hand? Okay. Great.
Yeah, just real quick. Do you guys handle letting people into the room for the event? Is that something that Reimagine does? Because
not typically. And Jill, I know that you're using my account for the event for Zoom. So we can, I'm not gonna be able to be there the whole time. So I can definitely help with like getting things started, but during the event, you might need to just click, the little admit button, which I can show you. It's really easy. Like during it's not that distracting after I know I can stay on for at least the first part, where the first chunk, the most people would attend. But in general, if there is anybody that would be able to attend and be kind of your like mini tech support, that would be great. And that's something, I don't know if anybody on this call might be available to help support Jill in her first event, as kind of an extra hand, in case there's, just to help admit people, and then also in the Facebook group too, you can say like, hey, is anybody available? Now I'm doing my first event. Because I think that there are people that would be able to do that, but even if you can't find somebody else, Jill, like I can get you set up, and I think you'll be all good for your event without me if I can't be there the whole time. Because I know that I have another meeting that overlaps a bit.
Okay. Are you doing?
But do you want to share your event to see if anybody on this call might be able to be a backup?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see. Okay, hold on. Definitely. Let me find it.
Okay. I can, if you want to start talking about it, I can find the link.
Also, I was going to say, Jill, because I was muted, that if you want to send me information about your event, I don't know how quickly I'll be able to get this follow-up email out, but I can also mention for those who attended this event, Jill's looking for help. I can add that to the email if you want.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know. I'm sorry if I was, thank you so much, Andy. I'm just, I didn't know that I was supposed to be in charge of, I guess I'm like late to the party here. I didn't know I was supposed to let people into the room. Yeah, that part I wasn't aware of.
Okay, yeah, but Jill, I can, I think you and I should probably just have a short call to kind of
Okay.
run through the tech setup and everything like that. But
Okay.
it is pretty, like I can,
Can you reach out to me and tell me when that'll be? That'll be great.
yeah, sure. Sure, no
Okay.
problem.
Thank you. That'll be
Okay.
great.
Okay, great. Great. Is there anything else that people have questions about or? Nothing? Okay. Well, I hope you all have a wonderful start for your week, and thank you so much for, just being such wonderful members of this community and really like building it. So, yeah, I'm super excited for what you come up with. And I guess on that note, if you end up doing something for your event that works really well, please let us know, like if in thinking to like what we can share with other people, like, oh, I asked this question, or, when we kicked it off, we started this way and that really got people more engaged. You know what I mean? So just let us know if there's anything that comes out of your meetings, your sessions that you think would be helpful to others too. Great. Okay. Bye, everyone.